Hey folks, Ron here. Today, boy, now number one, it's 95 degrees. So I'm going to be finding some shade to stand or walk in or sit in at some point. I got to tell you that much. But today, this is one that I researched. If you've watched my vlogs, you know I have a fascination with the Phillips family, meaning the Mamas and the Papas family, especially John Phillips, his ex-wife, the late John Phillips, his ex-wife Michelle Phillips, who I've done a vlog on. It's my most popular vlog, actually. Bijou Phillips, who I've met once 20 years ago up hiking, and I spoke to her, and she was with her boyfriend at the time, Sean Lennon, and we know who his parents are, or were, at least his father. MacKenzie Phillips, whose house I'm going to be showing you in a minute, and China Phillips. And China lives up Santa Barbara area, and I think that Bijou does also. So anyway, and Tam and the brothers, or the sons, or brothers, whatever you want to call them, Tamerlane, and gosh, I apologize, folks, the oldest one. And this was with 3 different women that John Phillips had these children, the 2 boys and the 3 girls. Anyway, but I do have a fascination with this family, and I see some cars pulling up there, but I'm going to try to show you MacKenzie Phillips' home. It's a very modest home here in the San Fernando Valley, literally a stone's throw from Ventura Boulevard, which is the main sort of thoroughfare in the South Valley here. And that's Ventura Boulevard there. You see the cars coming. And as we go, this is called south of Ventura. All the homes south of Ventura are very desirable. And if we go further south, you can't see it here, but it just ends up in the mountains in the Hollywood Hills. And then over the Hollywood Hills becomes the west side, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Pacific Palisades. So these are kind of the border houses here, or area. But this is considered south of Ventura just because it's a couple hundred feet south of Ventura Boulevard, which is right down there. Anyway, a lot about MacKenzie Phillips. Her real name is Laura Phillips. She's on title of the house, Laura MacKenzie. And I knew about her, well, number one, I knew about her from her TV show One Day at a Time. But that was, in the 70s and 80s. She was fired twice from that show for absentee drug, and eventually because of drug addiction, drug use. But I also knew about her because I was very into the Mamas and the Papas music, and it was such a soap opera that I read John Phillips' biography or autobiography that he wrote, hoping to get money after he escaped a prison sentence for trafficking narcotics. And of course, Laura MacKenzie's mentioned throughout that book. She even talks about that book in her own book, High on Arrival, and I've read her own book. And can we say sex, drugs, and rock and roll? I mean, there isn't anything that this woman hasn't done, just like her late father. But no judgments here, I'm just saying it. Now, also what's interesting is I read in her book, and she's had this house a little over 20 years, she said, I like sitting out on the porch and watching people walk by. I just passed the porch. In fact, there might be somebody actually in her driveway. We'll have to find out. And it is a nice porch. I might have to go across the street because we're coming up to the house. I see somebody's parked in the driveway. Let's see how close we can get. Maybe I'll walk on this side of the car. There's an SUV in the parking lot, yet it's next to a little apartment over there, apartment house with graffiti, gang graffiti on it. So I don't know. I guess she likes being this close to Ventura, but can we see it? A little house. I don't want anybody to come out and yell at me. There's the little table, I guess she was talking about, in the little porch. We'll come back to it. Here, these guys are doing some work here on the apartment building next door. Here's the house again. We'll kind of keep it behind me there. Let's do that. So, I'll talk about her. Let's see if we can get it from here too. Yeah, there we go. It's kind of, so we got that big tree in the way. If not for that tree, it's shaded. It's the only house that's really shaded right now because of the time of day. Well, let me talk about her. She's got, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, she's got like 6 trash cans, and it is trash day. Alright, so Grandma's my name, spoiling's my game. Oh, interesting. I wonder if that's Michelle's SUV right there parked out in front. Okay, so let's talk about Laura MacKenzie Phillips. I think I'm going to try to find some shade first. I'll be right back with you. Alright, I'll do a little walking and talking here on Ventura Boulevard. Bad hair day, hence the hat. So, Laura MacKenzie Phillips, I believe is the second oldest of John Phillips' children, the late John Phillips. Been gone a long time, I think like 2001. So, Laura Phillips grew up, going down to the Virgin Islands with the newly formed Mamas and the Papas when she was a kid. My point is she was exposed to a wild lifestyle of drinking and drugs and not too much parenting from, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, but lax parenting, certainly from her father at an early age. Her mother, Susan, John Phillips' first wife, she tried to do what she would. She later suffered, Susan, from alcoholism herself and from, I think, dementia eventually. Yeah, it's just not working, is it? Anyway, but Laura grew up as a wild child, and then let's fast forward. So obviously she stays at, I've shown you the house, 783 Bel Air Road, where at the height of the Mamas and the Papas fame, John Phillips and his second wife, Michelle, lived in Bel Air, spending more money than he had all the time. And Laura, visited there, lived there for a while without any parental supervision. Eventually, Laura, I think when she was 14, I keep calling her Laura, even though we know her as MacKenzie. Eventually, MacKenzie did the movie, which became the biggest grossing movie of all time. Eventually did the movie American Graffiti. I think she was 14 in 1972. They were shooting it. After that, she was, Fred was the casting director, saw her, and she was chosen eventually for One Day at a Time TV series. And to play the older sister, Julie. I remember thinking she was attractive. She was pretty. I guess a lot of people were into Valerie Bertinelli, a lot of guys, and I kind of thought Mac was kind of cute. Anyway, by this time, she had already been through a lot of boyfriends and a lot of drugs and a lot of partying, tried to clean up her act. She was actually fired from One Day at a Time, and she cleaned up her act, and then the second time they wanted to take a drug test. The producer said, we got to take urine. And she said, if you do it tomorrow, I'll be okay. And she said, no, can't do it, got to do it now, Mac. And she said, I might as well just go home. So she left for a second time and never returned to the show. And it was a tough road. But I'll tell you, after that, at some point in the 80s, then, pausing while a dog walks by with somebody, her father, John Phillips, put together the new Mamas and the Papas, and she always wanted to sing and be in it. They were touring, they were on the road, she was finding boyfriends, splitting up with boyfriends, crazy relationships with Peter Asher, the music producer, Jeff Sessler, who was associated with the Rolling Stones, basically as a drug courier. And then one night she woke up with her pants down to her ankles and she was in her father's bed. She didn't remember, but she realized that she had had sex with her own father, John Phillips, on the road. They didn't speak of it for a long time. Then they did speak of it. And then she claims in her biography, or autobiography, that she kept coming to his room for drugs, and then the sex became consensual. And that's, boy, it doesn't get more crazy and taboo than that, does it? So she claims that this consensual, although, obviously the definitions of consent have changed a lot in the last couple of years, but she claims this sexual experience or relationship with her dad, John Phillips, went on for years on the road, and that now, she's gone public about it. Half her family believes it, half her family does not believe it. Some of them don't speak to her because of it. And afterwards, she finally got clean and sober for a while. She got married to a musician who was in the New Mamas and the Papas, had a son, Her and her husband Shane eventually divorced, but stayed, friends for the benefit of their child. And she moved here to this house in the valley. I mean, for a while she was living with drug dealers. She'd sleep 3 days straight, then stay up 3 days straight, fall asleep in a chair for 3 days at a time. I mean, MacKenzie Phillips' story of drug addiction is one of the most severe I've ever heard. We're going to go back. But she cleaned up for a while, and then she was injured, or she had some back problems. I don't remember exactly, but then she got addicted to painkillers, pain pills, and it was the same old thing again, except different vice. So she's definitely had her struggles. She certainly had a very complicated relationship with her father. Her stepmother, to her credit, Michelle Phillips, really took her in and tried to be a real good stepmother, and was good to her, according to MacKenzie. Maybe still is. I don't know what Michelle's belief about John and the incest is, but I tend to think that Michelle does not believe that. But again, don't quote me, I don't know for sure. Anyway, hopefully MacKenzie is now clean and sober and cleaned up. And just what I want to film now, there's yet another car pulling up in front of her house. So I'm going to wait till they pass and see what we get. But boy, it's a crazy story, isn't it? I feel like I know her, even though I've never met her. Of course, I've only met one member of that family, very briefly, her half-sister, Bijou. I've never even met China. But China just moved, like I said, recently with her husband, Billy Bald, up to the Santa Barbara area. So let me stop this for a second, and we'll be back. I like this background here. This wall is very Palm Springs mid-century, and it's fitting because the father, Papa John Phillips, actually moved to Palm Springs, I think, sometime in the 90s, long after I had moved out. And even on my return visits, I never saw him. I would certainly recognize him, since he was real tall and gangly and a very distinctive look, and evidently a lot of, personality, a lot of charisma. One thing why it doesn't surprise me that this house is not a large or ostentatious house, in fact it's a very modest house, is because, of course, it's gone way up in value in the 20 years since she bought it, is that MacKenzie Phillips says that, through her life, through her entire life, even that one day at a time money, she said that she spent millions over the years on drugs and partying, and lost a bunch of money. So I don't think she was ever someone who was considered wealthy. I don't know if she got anything from her father's estate. I don't know if there was much left, but again, that was like 20 years ago. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. It's kind of a tiny little house. A lot of people driving and parking here, so I don't want them to obstruct my view. We'll be back in a second. So it's a very busy area. There's people pulling up constantly, sitting in cars, walking dogs. I think the reason they're pulling up here is because they're trying to park, they're trying to go out to Ventura Boulevard, and they don't want to pay for a parking meter on Ventura Boulevard. Start parking here on the street. So I'm just going to do a walk by, because if I wait, it'll be forever. Somebody's delivering flowers over there. Somebody's walking a dog. I don't know what's going on. It's sheer madness. Sheer madness, I tell you. So anyway, all right. Our last look at the house here. Got a bunch of water bottles out front there. The other day I was, here's the house behind me. The other day I was at a location filming. As far as I know, a celebrity no longer lives at the location I was at, but they were filming. I was filming. I started to reach over the fence like that, and bzzz, it seemed like security was trying to tell me, get out of there. All right, folks. Well, home of Laura MacKenzie Phillips, from One Day at a Time, actress, part-time singer, daughter of the late John Phillips, the leader and founder of the Mamas or the Papas. Fascinating story, as you can tell. I know it well. All right, guys, so I'm going to let it go there. I'll say thanks very much for watching and listening. Thank you very much for those of you who have already subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so, and please hit the little bell icon next to the subscription button. Then you'll be notified when I post. And please give the channel likes. That's what really moves it along. And comment in the comment section if you see fit. I know we're going to get comments on this one because it's a hell of a fascinating subject. Okay, guys, I'll see you at the next location. Thank you. Bye-bye.